When people say caveman, they often picture a cartoon, a heavy brow, a dragging posture, a life supposedly simpler than ours. The truth is older, stranger, and more dignified. Caves and rock shelters were sometimes homes, places where firelight held back the night, where families slept, where hands pressed pigment to stone. But early humans did not only live in caves, they camped in open air, built structures of wood and reed when materials allowed, followed rivers, and crossed coastlines. The cave is a symbol of shelter, not a cage, that defines a species. This episode is a calm, scholarly walk through deep time. How hominins, our branch of the primate family, changed in body and mind, how scientists learned where we likely began, how mistaken ideas were corrected with evidence, and how respect for the past grows when we refuse caricature. We will end with you, modern Homo sapiens, carrying genes and cultures shaped by millennia. If you are listening with a child, you might offer a simple anchor. Cave people were real people who used caves when caves helped. Cool shade in heat, dry walls in rain, stone that preserves paint. They were also people of open skies, riverbanks, and coasts. The word caveman is a cartoon. The reality is skill, family, and adaptation. That distinction protects dignity, theirs and ours. Museums and documentaries sometimes compress millions of years into a single cave scene because stone preserves well. That practical fact can quietly mislead us. It is easier to find painted walls in limestone shelters than to recover a fleeting camp beside a seasonal lake. So when you picture the past, imagine both the gallery under the earth and the wind on the plain, two halves of one human habit of choosing place with care. Taxonomy can feel like homework, yet a few words unlock the story. Hominid traditionally referred to great apes and humans. Modern usage sometimes differs by source. Hominin typically means the group that includes modern humans and our extinct closer relatives after the split from the lineage leading to chimpanzees and bonobos, our living closest cousins. When we speak of Australopithecus, Paranthropus, and species of Homo, we are speaking of hominin diversity across millions of years. Branches are not ladders. Evolution is not a straight climb from primitive to advanced as moral judgment. It is change across generations under pressure, opportunity, and constraint. Some lineages ended, others continued. Some traits persisted, others transformed. When we compare physical and intellectual differences between groups, we compare adaptations and evidence, not worth. You may hear missing links in old books. Modern paleoanthropology prefers branching diagrams with many extinct twigs. Gaps remain. That is not scandal. It is the honest shape of preservation. Rivers bury, mountains erode, forests hide. What survives is precious. For centuries, European science often assumed human origins lay near Europe, a bias of empire, incomplete fossils, and storytelling. Discoveries across Africa, improved dating and genetics reshaped the consensus. Today, the weight of evidence supports an African origin for Homo sapiens, with complex population structure and later migrations and mixture, not a single first couple, but a braided ancestry. History also remembers mistakes that teach humility. The Piltdown hoax, a fabricated ancient Englishman built from altered bones, delayed understanding until exposure in the 1950s. It is not told to mock the past, but to show why science prizes repeatable evidence, independent checks, and ethical stewardship of specimens. Every fossil is someone's heritage. Many sites belong to communities whose consent and leadership matter in modern archaeology. Repatriation and ethical curation, returning remains to descendant communities where relationships exist, are part of science maturing. A good classroom story includes not only what we know, but how we behave toward what we find. Concrete places anchor the shift in thinking. The Sterkfontein area in South Africa, Oldowan Gorge in Tanzania, and the Turkana Basin in Kenya are not mere dots on a map. They are landscapes where generations of researchers have slowly refined what early means, layer by layer. A child can understand the moral without memorizing the names. Science grows when many teams, many countries, and many kinds of evidence work together. and when local knowledge and stewardship are honored alongside technical skill. The fossil record of the earliest hominins is fragmentary, jaw pieces, skull fragments, limb bones, yet it points toward an African story millions of years deep. Candidates such as Paranthropus and Oldowan are debated. Taxonomy at the root is difficult because small differences in worn specimens can change interpretations. What is broadly supported is that by the time of clearer Australopiths, bipedal locomotion was central. Walking upright freed hands changed the pelvis, altered the spine's curves, and influenced how energy is spent while traveling. It did not replace the need for intelligence, cooperation, or care. It changed the platform on which those traits could express. Bipedalism also changed what vulnerability meant. Slower sprinting compared to many predators, perhaps more reliance on tools, throwing, cooperation, and vigilance. Speculation enters here. We speak gently. The bones say, "This body walked this way." The rest is disciplined imagination. The Australopiths include famous names like Australopithecus afarensis, associated with partial skeletons that reveal a mix of traits, bipedal legs and a pelvis, suited to upright walking, with a smaller brain relative to modern humans, and shoulders that still hint at climbing. The Litoli footprints in Tanzania, preserved in volcanic ash, offer a poetic trace. Two individuals walking, perhaps close together, leaving impressions like a quiet message across 3 million years. Brain size is not character. A small-brained hominin can be sophisticated in social life in ways bones do not record. Still, comparing endocranial volume across species helps scientists discuss energetic costs, diet, and possible cognitive shifts, always with caution. Paranthropines, often called robust Australopiths, show massive chewing adaptations, sagittal crests for muscle attachment, broad faces and heavy dentition suited to tough plant foods, though diets can be mixed. They are not failed humans. They were successful herbivorous specialists in their time, parallel experiments alongside early Homo. Their story teaches students that evolution produces variety, not a single rehearsal for us. Extinction is not a moral verdict. Early Homo species, such as Homo habilis and Homo rudolfensis, in broad textbook schemes, though species boundaries are debated, associate with the first recognizable stone tool industries, notably the Oldowan. Cores and flakes useful for cutting meat and plants, processing hides, and working wood. Tools do not prove language, but they suggest foresight, teaching, and social transmission. Children learning by watching hands. Teeth can shrink relative to earlier hominins as food processing changes. Body proportions shift toward a more human-like frame in later Homo. Each shift is a hypothesis tested against new fossils. Cut marks on bones can reveal butchery. They do not automatically reveal hunting rather than scavenging. Researchers build cases from landscape context, prey age profiles, and tool use wear. The public often wants crisp stories, science often offers probabilities. Both can be taught with respect. If you are building a mental timeline, remember that first tool and first Homo are intertwined questions, not a single flashbulb moment. Some communities of early hominins may have used perishable tools, wood, bone without knapping, that archaeology rarely preserves. Stone is loud in the record because it survives. Humility about silence in the record keeps our respect for ancient intelligence honest. Homo erectus, or the erectus-grade hominins, sometimes split into multiple species names by researchers, appears in the fossil record as a taller, modern-hipped form associated with Acheulean hand axes in many regions, though tool traditions vary by time and place. Erectus-grade hominins spread across parts of Africa and Eurasia, encountering new climates and prey. Sites from Dmanisi in Georgia to Java in Indonesia illustrate how complicated first arrivals can be when dating and taxonomy shift with new work. The lesson for students is not memorizing every date, but understanding method, stratigraphy, isotopic clocks, comparison of artifacts and bones, and the slow refinement of maps. Their endurance as a lineage across a vast span of time challenges simple, primitive labels. They were adept, adaptable, and persistent. Students sometimes ask whether erectus was human. Science uses species names to mark biological variation. Everyday language uses human with warmth. A compassionate classroom answer might be, they were part of our deep family, close enough that their achievements deserve awe, distant enough that we should not project modern lives onto them. The hand axe, well, when it appears, is not a gadget. It is a repeated cultural choice, a shape taught and refined across lifetimes. Evidence for controlled use of fire deepens over time, with sites and patterns debated century by century. Cooking matters not only for warmth and predators, but for nutrition. Breaking down tough tissues, widening usable calories, possibly influencing social schedules around hearths. Fire transforms a camp into a classroom, faces lit, stories possible, tools maintained, children kept close. We should not imagine a single eureka night. Mastery accumulates unevenly across regions as culture does today. Jokudian and other localities have shaped imaginations of cave life in Asia, while African sites anchor earlier chapters. Each place is a window, hearths, butchered bones, stone refitting studies that suggest skilled knappers teaching apprentices. None of this proves poetry, but it whispers culture, the way humans thicken the world with meaning. Across later Homo, average brain size tends to increase, though not perfectly linearly. Longer childhoods and extended dependency may accompany learning-intensive lifeways. Yet brains alone do not explain behavior. Ecology, social structure, and culture interact. Neanderthals, for example, had large brains, often comparable to or exceeding average modern human brain volume, yet their bodies differed. Stocky builds suited to cold stress, distinctive faces, and strong muscle attachments. Intelligence is not one number, it is many capacities. Planning, empathy, communication, technology, partially visible in stone, bone, pigment, and shell. When we compare intellect across species, we are really asking which problems a lineage had to solve repeatedly and which solutions left durable traces. Childcare leaves few fossils, yet it must have mattered enormously. A slow-growing young depends on patient teaching, shared food, and vigilance. That invisible curriculum is part of cognitive history, even when we cannot photograph it. Neanderthals lived across Europe and into Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years. They hunted, gathered, used tools, controlled fire, sometimes lived in caves and rock shelters, and buried their dead in some contexts, interpretations carefully argued from sites. They made personal ornaments in places. They may have produced symbolic markings. Science continues to evaluate claims with rigor. Ancient DNA revolutionized understanding. Many living people outside sub-Saharan Africa carry small percentages of Neanderthal ancestry from encounters thousands of years ago. They were not our enemies in a fairy tale. They were cousins, sometimes competitors, sometimes partners, real people in a real world. Dental calculus, fossilized plaque, sometimes preserves microscopic clues about diet and environment. Such methods expand what bones alone can say. They also remind us that technology in paleoanthropology includes chemistry labs, not only stone flakes. Compassion belongs in this chapter too. Neanderthals nursed injured companions in some cases. They lived through harsh seasons. They buried some of their dead with care that archaeologists debate but do not dismiss lightly. When modern storytellers portray them as shambling villains, they trade truth for old prejudice. The corrective is not sentimentality, it is evidence, and a refusal to confuse difference with lesser worth. Denisovans are known largely from a handful of fossils, like a finger bone and teeth, from Denisova Cave in Siberia, yet their genome echoes widely. Genetic traces in modern populations, especially in Oceania and parts of Asia, show ancient mixture events. This is science's humility. Entire populations can be real and influential while leaving few skeletons. Denisovans remind us that the past had more human diversity than museum dioramas once showed. Anatomically, modern humans combine a high, rounded skull, a chin, a gracile skeleton relative to Neanderthals, and a pattern of tool industries that accelerate in complexity over tens of thousands of years. Blade technologies, bone tools, projectile weapons suited to varied prey, and long-distance exchange. Art bursts into the record in ways that vary by region and preservation. Cave paintings, portable figurines, ochre processing. Language as we know it does not fossilize. Yet symbolic behavior, consistent patterns that imply shared meaning, offers indirect evidence of rich inner lives. The out-of-Africa model for Homo sapiens, recent African origin with later dispersal, is supported by genetics and fossils, though the details include return migrations, mixture, and regional debates that headlines often flatten. Trust diagrams that show uncertainty, bars on dates that honesty is part of scientific literacy. Blade technology, bone needles, harpoons, and inferred tailored clothing speak to survival in cold steppes, problem-solving in fibre as well as flint. Modern behaviour is a bundle: foresight, cooperation, teaching, and tricks that accumulate slowly then spread. Older textbooks sometimes framed modern humans as if they alone invented sophistication. Contemporary research disperses that pride across multiple lineages and long-time depths. Homo sapiens is special to us because it is us, but specialness in science is not a license to erase cousins from the story. The emotional payoff is kinship widened, a larger family tree, more wonder, less mockery. Caves preserve what open camps lose: charcoal drawings, hand stencils, engravings. Sites in France and Spain are famous, yet Indonesia and other regions also hold astonishingly old art, reshaping timelines. Caves were not studios alone, they were also places of sound, shadow, and possibly ritual. Scientists debate interpretations carefully, separating evidence from romance. Ochre, iron-rich pigment, appears at many times and places, sometimes rubbed into shells, sometimes sprinkled on burials, sometimes ground fine. Meaning varies. The pattern suggests attention to colour and display deep in the human story. When children see cave art, they touch a kinship. Humans reaching across time to say in pigment, "We were here." As climates pulsed through glacial cycles, human populations moved, contracted, and expanded. Coasts offered fish, shellfish, and roots. Deserts and ice posed barriers and filters. Genetics records population structure, bottlenecks, and mixture, not as royal bloodlines, but as human geography written in chromosomes. Movement is not conquest in every case. Often it is survival, curiosity, and relationship across terrain. Sheltered diversity matters: rock overhangs, brush huts, mammoth bone frameworks in colder steppes. Each solution speaks to climate and available materials. When we say caveman, we can gently correct the myth while honouring real caves where families slept and artists painted. Isotopic studies of tooth enamel can reveal childhood geography, where a person grew, where they moved. Such methods turn a single jaw into a biography of landscape. They also remind listeners that migration is not an abstract headline. It can be a child carried across hills, a family following seasons. During cold phases of the Pleistocene, sea levels fell and rose, reshaping coasts and bridges of land that existed only briefly in geological terms. Human beings crossed water in ways we still discuss, from indirect evidence, rafts, boats, or accidental voyages, become hypotheses tested with archaeology and models. The tone we keep is wonder without sensationalism. People solved problems in worlds harsher than our living rooms, often through cooperation more than solitary genius. The transition from foraging to farming happened independently in multiple world regions at different times with different crops and animals. It changed disease patterns, workloads, social organization, and inequality, topics for other episodes. Here it matters as a bridge. The early human story does not stop at caves. It flows into villages, cities, writing, and the crowded present. Modern humans are the same species biologically, yet culturally staggeringly diverse, proof that biology is a beginning, not a destiny. Cities, writing, metal, and global trade arrive at different moments on different continents. Inequality and innovation intertwine. This episode only waves toward that complexity, enough to connect cave hearths to the humming present without pretending one video can hold all of history. Domestication changed daily rhythms: more storage, more neighbors, new diseases shared between species, new schedules of work. None of that erases the foraging brilliance that preceded it. Many societies combined strategies for long transitions. For a family audience, the lesson is continuity with transformation. human creativity expressed in different economies across millennia, always with costs and benefits that historians debate with care. Scientists compare brow ridge thickness, dental size, limb proportions, and cranial volume to build phylogenies and test hypotheses about climate, diet, and locomotion. Those comparisons belong in classrooms as biology, not as excuses for modern prejudice. Every contemporary human population is fully human. Variation today is shallow compared to the depth of time. Intellectual differences across extinct species are inferred from material culture and anatomy, always uncertainly. Humility is not weakness. It is the price of speaking honestly about minds we cannot interview. Teachers compare skeleton casts with ethics. Comparison is for understanding ancestry, never for ranking classmates. The past is a mirror that asks us to be kinder in the present. If a student asks who was smartest, the honest answer is that science does not crown a winner across extinct lineages. It maps capacities from evidence. Bragging rights belong to no fossil, respect belongs to all. That framing protects both scientific integrity and classroom safety. We end where you live, in a world of cities and screens, medicine and music, worries and wonder. Your body carries genes from African roots, from Neanderthal encounters, from Denisovan mixture in some lines, from countless unnamed ancestors who survived ice, heat, plague, childbirth, and love. That inheritance is not a trophy or a chain. It is a responsibility to tell the past fairly, to reject caricature, to protect children's dignity when we teach prehistory. Public health, literacy, and technology have changed the texture of daily life beyond anything a Pleistocene family would recognize, yet emotions recognizable across time, care for young, grief, cooperation, curiosity, likely threaded through their days as they thread through ours. Anthropology does not erase difference. It connects without flattening. If you listened for sleep, I hope the story felt steady. If you listened to learn, I hope you felt invited, not tested. The cave was never the whole story, but firelight still teaches us something true. Humans gather, we teach, we imagine, and we try to leave gentle hands on the wall for those who come next. Tomorrow's science will refine dates, redraw maps, and surprise us with new sights. That uncertainty is not failure, it is the living edge of curiosity. Carry forward one simple ethic from deep time. The people of the past were not props in our story, we are late arrivals in theirs. Tell it that way, and the history feels warmer, truer, and wide enough for every listener at your fireside.